starting it. This will be starting.
Oh, sorry.
Starting order and report.
Oh, yeah. Ah, see? Good thing could have done.
Yeah, you want us back here, so.
She wants to hide.
No, I don't.
You still busy?
I'm here.
Oh, no. So, I'm going to declare the meeting open. Bud is a couple of minutes behind schedule, that's all. But people still got things to do. Last year I wasn't present here at the meeting, and it appears Jerry didn't appoint anyone to take minutes for me. And when I asked him afterwards, didn't supply anything, and actually told me that it wasn't recorded. I just learned otherwise from Ron, he was going to supply me with a copy of the recording so I can run through. But as far as I understand it, the only things that really mattered were the election report and the Treasurer's report, both of which are on the website anyway, so therefore by definition they're approved. So there wouldn't be anything else on the minutes. So in terms of procedure, we'll have to skip the proposal and approval of the minutes, but basically there isn't anything anyway. Okay? Moving on, we'll come back to the Treasurer. We'll take it out of order. The Treasurer can present his report in a few minutes when he arrives. I'll pass you on to Roy as membership officer to provide his report for the rest year.
Thank you. I've been doing this now, giving you reports of our membership trends from June 1 to June 1, an annual report for the last 4 years. This is the first year I'm able to tell you that we've had an increase in membership in that 12-month period. It's very modest, okay, very modest, but it is a difference for us as an organization. Let me give you the numbers. We have a total membership of 1,122 members. 276 of those are life members, 150 are associates, and 696 are regular members. Okay? Those numbers show us an increase from June 1 of 2021 to 2022 of 18 members. Very modest, but still a change in direction. I think there are, looking at the numbers and kind of doing an analysis, I think there are two reasons for that. First, in that year, I think we had an increase in new memberships. We had 20 more new members last year than we had the year before. So that made up, or that is attributable to our increase. And the other thing that I think is important is that I track on a quarterly basis the percentage of our membership who renew their membership. And our renewal rate has gone up over the last couple of years. And this year, our renewal rate was 85%. So that means that of all the people who are eligible, or whose memberships expire in a certain quarter, 85% of them renew. So what I think we were experiencing with a little bit of an uptick in new memberships and uptick in our percentage of renewals is that we've hit what I'm going to call a stabilizing point. It is that point at which our new membership kind of matches the folks who aren't renewing each period. And so we can begin, I think, as an organization to plan on a more consistent membership. And I think that's important for any organization to be able to do as they're planning. So I'm happy to make that report, and with that, turn it back to Dave.
Any questions to the membership secretary? Can I have a
Yeah,
motion?
just a quick question, just curious. The high renewal rate, is that mostly older members? Is there any way to know that the newer members aren't renewing?
Yes, there is, but I don't have that exactly.
Yeah. No,
In
it's
the
just-
past, we've not done a very good job on retention, which is retaining those new members in the first 2 or 3 years of that.
But that's, if I could add something, that's partly down to the way that the majority of those new members were acquired through sort of promotions and things where basically you gave it to them free,
That's
rather
my point,
than
yeah.
necessarily really being genuine members that wanted to join at their own accord. So it's been a little bit skewed for some time, I think.
Ron?
On the new memberships, do we have an age range? The new memberships, what age group?
No, I don't have that. We don't ask for age when someone comes in.
Mhm.
No.
That's a good question.
Somewhere between 0 and
Maybe on the right side of the room.
Okay, can I have a motion to accept the membership officer's report?
motion.
Second.
All in favour?
Aye.
Right. I'm going to just add, you know that, most of you know that I'm exiting the membership officer position at this point. And for those of you who've not met Steve Azarek, who will take my spot. Steve, if you want to just raise your hand so people know who you are. And we've been training the last few days, so comfortable and leaving you in Steve's capable hands.
Okay, we have no president's report, obviously. I should admit that. In fact, we have no president as yet. And we have no convention chair. As you probably all know, myself and Jim Stephens have been sharing it, between us since Jerry left. And Jim just suggested that we open that out. If anybody's got any questions regarding the convention, so-far convention activities, then I'll do my best to answer those now.
I just have a stupid question.
There's no stupid questions,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
stupid answers.
Trust me. Last year, throughout the show, in the showroom,
Yeah.
we had background music. We don't have it this year. Is there a reason why? Did you have to pay for it, or?
It's $3,000.
Really? Oh, shit.
It's because they have to pay $2,000 for performing rights or whatever. It's a different area to the music that's in the corridor, and this is piped.
Yeah.
Apparently, so this is you walk around the casino, this is the same, what's here. But that in there requires the mixing desk, a device hooked up to it. You have to provide, you provide a device with music or whatever, and the feed to the ceiling and all that.
Okay. Thank you.
So we did have it once free. This would be maybe 4 years ago. And they, well, yeah, I think we were supposed to pay, but Steve Palumbo took advantage of the fact that they left a connection up there for his iPad. And he connected it, and nobody was really aware that it was,
Thank you.
That's something I'm going to talk to them about. What I'm going to do, rather than waiting until they send their invoice through in 3 or 4 weeks' time, and then we start arguing about, well, no, we didn't have 8 of those, we only had 7, and this wasn't there, and that wasn't there. I've talked to the catering director here quite a bit since I arrived 8 days ago, just to make them run through everything with him, just to make sure sort of everything was smooth. I'm going to drop into him on Monday morning or Tuesday. I'm still here till Wednesday. Maybe have a coffee and run through things, make sure everybody was happy, and bring up little points now just to establish that if we have, can we have this next year? Is that a problem? Is there any cost, or can you throw that in? Just to try and smooth things out now and make sure they were happy. That we didn't do anything that they didn't like and they haven't said anything yet, etc.
Comment I'd like to make as far as the video, live video from Facebook,
Yeah.
with music playing in the background, if there's A
Yes.
section of there, they take my video off.
That was a secondary issue, and this happened, I know they're not all up to date, but I had got all the videos from sort of 2019, 18, 17, so I had about 5 years on the website, if you look where from the conventions. And then going back before that, there are a couple of years that are missing, and then there are some more. Well, on those couple of years, there was either music in the main hall or some faint music like this in the rooms where the seminars were, etc. And when I tried to upload those to YouTube, I did all the work and everything. When I tried to upload those, it picked up that music and blocked them. So
The only comment I
the
have-
other thing is we need control over the thing so that at certain times, if you wanted to film on the floor, for example, Ron, we could turn it off while you did it and then turn it back on. But I will bring that up. That's a good point.
If you keep the
It's not
volume
that
low,
it's
it's
not.
usually pretty good. If you keep the volume low,
Keep
it's
it
it's
down.
when the crowd noise dies out and the volume's audible,
Yeah.
then they'll catch it.
I will it was nice that we've had, Friday's always quiet, but Thursday I thought it was pretty well attended. There were always people around. And there's noise and chatter and everything, which is good, so it's not like it's a sterile hall with no noise. There was always mumbling of people talking and everything, so that helped. But anyway, so yeah, I'm going to ask John on Monday about the music, because I think we should be able to do something.
Yeah,
I understand it may be a minimal fee or something, but
it's a good feature.
okay. We can, again, while we wait for the bud, we can take this out of order and present or I can call on Bruce and Mary Ann to present the election reports, because I believe you have two.
Two. I've got 2 reports, so we're going quickly. And I think most of you not all know all the information anyway, but we're going to go through it. For the regular election of board of directors this year, we had 19 nomination forms. And the following people did get the 2 nominations they needed. For vice president, it was Rich Burgell and Jim Follis. Treasurer was Bud Wazinski. He was unopposed, no other nominees. For membership officer, we had Steve Asserlot, Rich Huber, Mark Leiterman, and Roy Nelson. Mr. Burgell and Follis both accepted the nomination for vice president. Bud was unopposed. He accepted the nomination. Huber, Leiterman, and Nelson all declined the nomination, and so therefore Steve was unopposed for membership officer.
Are you sure about Steve?
Yes, I have it in writing. Anyway, on March 31st, though, Rich Burgell did officially withdraw his candidacy. Therefore, Jim is unopposed for vice president. And any ballots that we did get for vice president while all this was going on were shredded as we received them. We never even opened the envelopes. So, at this time, Jim Follis, vice president, Bud Wazinski, treasurer, and Steve Asherlot, membership officer, are hereby submitted for certification by a vote of the current board of directors.
Congratulations.
I suppose I do have to hereby cast one vote, although at this particular second in time I am the only board member. That's probably a rather novel
You only
situation,
want your
isn't
one
it?
vote anyway.
I was going to do the 2 together, but it doesn't matter. I hereby cast one vote on behalf of the
Great.
board of the club to certify the results. Steve,
Yes, sir.
you are now membership secretary, if you'd like to take Roy's place. And I'd like to, on behalf of everybody here and the past board members that Roy worked with, like to thank him for his great service.
And I'll second that. Boy, it's been a real joy.
And thankfully, he's still continuing his promotions, etc. So
You want me to say yes, right, David?
I won't say yes to this guy. Yeah. Okay.
Alrighty.
Part 2.
We then have a special election this year. The nominations for a special election for president we received. We received 68 nomination forms, none were voided. And FYI, that's the most forms we've ever received. Prior to this, there were 36 in 2017. Our records go back to 2015. So anyway, we got a lot of nomination forms. And the following members did receive the 2 required nominations for the office of president. Rich Burgell, he declined. Weston Charles, he declined. Eric Friedner accepted. Oscar Lavalainen accepted. Mark Leiderman declined. Jay Sands declined. Doug Smith declined. David Sprague accepted. Jim Steffner declined. And Jerry Bergados declined. Then on May 18th, Oscar officially withdrew his candidacy for president. The following members did get 1 nomination for president, but they needed 2, so we're going to mention them anyway. John Benedict, Archie Black, George Dimitrevsky, Jim Follis, Scott Hartman, Nate Pincus, and Amelia Soto. So the ballot, which is in the magazine that has been sent out, is misworded, and that's my bad. I take last year's ballot and change the names to protect the innocent and didn't notice it. The successor will serve only the remaining term of the current president, which is like a year from this meeting. The ballot that's in the magazine shows him doing a 2-year term. No. But just so everyone knows, if you've already sent it in, made copies, get the one in the magazine, we'll accept either version. They'll both be accepted and valid, and that's not a problem, just so everyone understands it's for 1 year to finish out the current term. Okay, the ballots have to be postmarked by July 16th, received by us by July 23rd. We'll count them, request a certification from our secretary, David Sprague, and announce the new CCA's president's name during the week of July 24th, just before we leave on a cruise.
Ooh, yeah.
I don't need to be present to see to witness the count.
No, good. I mean,
It's
you're more
okay.
than welcome to come. We got that before, you come to our house and
I
watch.
want to
Yeah,
go
it's
on
fine.
the cruise.
I
I want to go on the cruise.
You want to go on the cruise? Okay. I just wanted.
Marianne's question.
I'm sorry.
Steve.
Question, let's assume, for the sake of argument, that David wins for president. What happens to the secretary position? How does that work?
If the strict rules are that I and I alone get to appoint president, because they're in the second year of the term.
Gotcha.
In actual fact, in advance, this has already been discussed within the board to prepare for this situation.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Any other questions, or I'm all done?
Thank you for your
Thank you.
service.
Yeah.
Thank you.
well, our treasurer hasn't arrived yet, unfortunately.
Take the money and run.
Treasurer's report has of course been posted on the club website for some time.
Go over there.
I'm happy to take any new business or questions on any other matters first, out of all while we await. If anyone has got anything
We're in touch with him right now, so
to bring up.
on his way.
Where's Weston?
Where's Weston? Oh, we told him it was 8:30.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Considering what the board went through,
yeah.
have any changes been instituted to prevent some of the things, the abuses that happened with the last presidency? In particular, taking financial control?
Well, yes to a degree, because we were in a situation previously where there was only one credit card signatory, only one authorised user, and it was the president and not the treasurer. I mean, I'm sure that if there's a problem and a board member has something that needs to be expended urgently and he can't afford to do so out of his own pocket, he could either make an arrangement with the treasurer or call and he could ring, as we've been doing, what we've been doing recently. If there's a bill to be paid and it's got to be paid by card, we just ask Bud, can you call through to whoever it is and make the payment on the phone for us. And the 2 signatories for the bank account do not include the president, and will not include the president at the moment, because they don't. It's not necessary. It's not necessary for the president to actually sort of make the decisions and go out and pay for everything without having to involve everybody else. That's part of the safety checks. It requires 2 other members, so immediately that's 3 of the 5 board members who know that money is about to be spent, even if the other 2 don't yet. Yeah? That's,
But the check itself has 2 lines for signatures. So
the check has 2 lines of signature, but what I'm saying is you can't, unless you want more than 2 signatures, you can't ever prevent any possibility of corruption between those 2 officers. But what you can do is you can have it so that those 2 officers do not include the president, because then invariably it means you've have to have 3 people involved. So you at least have a majority.
Could you explain what the approval process is for expenses?
Yeah, and also I was going to say the fact that it means they wouldn't have to send checks much further away. The approval process. Well, unless something has a predefined budget or has been specifically approved during previous board discussion or anything, I say discussion because we now have Zoom as well as email and phone calls, etc., then whoever is or wishes to incur the expense has to report to and get approval from the remaining board members.
Right, the board discusses these
Prior
types of
to
purchases.
making an expense?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I guess that's.
Yes, I said it, it's not there
Yeah.
are certain pre-approved things. But if there is something completely new, unrelated to anything you've done before, etc., and would be a surprise to everybody, so to speak. It doesn't matter how small it is to an extent. You just, even if that's just a quick email, a quick note round, I want to do such and such, it means I'm going to have to spend $150 or whatever. Is that okay with everyone? It doesn't have to be a formal meeting, but just, and that is the process, which I have to say we pretty much operated on until a year or so ago. It's pretty normal, I would have thought. Same as in an office, you know.
The reason I'm asking is that mow expenses,
Yeah,
which get approved by the mow board,
yeah.
the last year or so required the president of the CCA to approve.
I'm surely only if they were over $1,000. Well, that was the rule that was given. You know, if you have somebody who wants to spend $100 and that's out of the ordinary within the mode, then that's up to the mode board members to agree that that's okay.
Right, but my understanding was that Bud was not to issue any checks unless the president approved it.
I was completely unaware of that. That's the
Yeah.
first I've ever heard of it.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. I know that you or the MO chairman had a threshold, that anything over that, it was to come to the CCA board. Okay.
Yeah.
And not specifically the president, to the board. Using the president as the avenue. That threshold has been different for an acting MO chair, has been different for
Yeah, it was
a...
5. I was going to say it was 500, wasn't it, as the acting chair? I recalled that afterwards. So
It's
it's
very-
been thousands before back to Doug's day.
I think it was 2,500.
Oh,
Right, right.
But we, yeah.
But believe that it was at 1,000 for the chair. What do you believe the threshold is? Or are you saying there is
There
no?
was no threshold. Every time I submitted an expense form,
Okay, but
it
that's easily,
required,
that's easily remedied. You know, you can go ahead and solicit to the board, what's the threshold, or the board can discuss it and let you know what it is.
Or if you think it should be set at a different level, tell us and we'll discuss it.
you know, the vote doesn't have that many expenses. We have some ongoing expenses that you know about. We set up to use the club credit card to pay those expenses. That's for the website and for the storage lockers. But other than that, we generally have some small expenses from now and then again. And our procedure is expenses are approved by the board at a board meeting.
Unless it's under a certain threshold and you can.
I asked
No, Charles actually asked us to cover absolutely everything so that he was covered, so to speak.
Well, that's what I'm
So
saying.
you've gone to an
Right,
extreme
at
in
a
the other
certain
way.
point, you know, Charlie, you're an okay from you to make
I
a person.
understand, but
Yeah.
the point of having a board is to get everybody's opinions and get the best solutions.
We agree with
And
that.
if you don't keep everybody informed of what's going on, you're losing out on possibly somebody having a better idea than you do.
That's
Yeah.
So we keep the board informed of what's going on.
right. I completely agree. And also as the vice chair, yeah, I completely agree. Bill, I wanted to make a follow-up to, just known place, a follow-up to what controls we've enacted. We've also made a decision that and it hasn't been published yet, but we're looking at it being a bylaw
Well, it has been.
That-
agreed, yeah.
that the convention chairman cannot be a board member. And also,
Yeah, the key thing is the president cannot appoint himself as the convention chair or the mode chair. And that such chairs have to be agreed by the whole of the board and not just the president. Because at the moment it says in the bylaws that the president can appoint that person now.
so we're modifying that, and of course, there's potentially always an exception, an emergency. If somebody
Yeah,
drops
right.
dead,
So-
you need to have, coverage. But as a rule, it's not that. Bill?
Two things, I would suggest with the mode policy, because there seems to be confusion with the mode can do and can't do. Some type of policy manual be written or created,
Right.
spelling everything out, so there's no confusion like right here. And going back to Mr. Kaplan's previous question, was there financial improprieties in the last couple of years with the board members or whatever that is creating all this sort of question overhang of money? And if so, what were they?
Can I take part of that?
Sure, I don't care.
I was a treasurer for a short amount of time. And in that time, not one expense was declined. Any expenses that were said to me, every single one of them was paid. Now, I can't say if something was declined before it got to me. That's possible, I don't know. But anything that I got was paid. So,
Well, what I'm saying is, it seems to me there's a question of some financial impropriety by previous board members, new board members, something like this, and I'm just curious, it seems to be implied from.
I can provide an
So
example.
therefore, what is it? Was there or wasn't there?
I can provide an example.
It's not that, it's just the risk that you have one single person who can go and empty all the club's bank accounts without involving.
Well, no, I understand that, and I agree with that.
So-
You know, there should be a check and balance system.
Yeah.
But it seemed like it was implied that there was. So was there or wasn't there?
Yes.
Yes, there was.
Yes, I'll be honest, yes.
Okay, and then
there
what was it?
I can't go into the details. But
Why
yes,
not?
there was. Why? For legal reasons.
What legal reasons? This is a business meeting.
For legal reasons, because there may still be legal action pending against the previous president.
Okay.
Okay?
Right.
And we're talking significant sums of money, 5 digits. That's all I'm going to say.
Can I cite an example?
Yes? Oh, okay. If you've got us.
So Mr. Vaganos, on his own, without MOG board approval, went to several of the venues that had solicited vouchers, which is not a bad thing. But again, didn't inform the board he was doing so. He had the vouchers printed at MOG expense, and it's significant expense to have those printed because they have serial numbers. He controlled those vouchers. He was in sole possession of them and gave them out at his own discretion, again without any MOG board discussion or approval. And I'm pretty confident that a lot of it went to either CCA or outside of the CCA people. And, you know, MOG didn't get, the MOG paid for it. It was under the MOG guidelines, but it really was no benefit to the Museum of Gaming History out of that. And then when he resigned, and I asked for the vouchers back, the response was that they were all expired and I destroyed them all, which we know is not the truth. So again, all of this was completely without any approval or knowledge of the rest of the MOG board.
So will those dollars show up on the treasury
little bit
report?
different, Charles, in terms of the MOG propriety. What we're talking about, for example, is all the Southern Nevada Club printing being charged to the club credit card. For example, all those colour brochures that you're carrying around at the moment. I think Bud could verify if he was here. The invoice was about $3,500 for those, like 30,000 of them made. And another issue the same. You're aware, obviously, we had Dennis Blair as a performer at the banquet. I actually thought that was quite good entertainment. Yeah, it was a nice change. And we've got him again this evening in the volunteer reception. Jerry did, with Sam Wagmeister, negotiate an extremely favourable rate, and it only cost us $450 a session. What Jerry didn't tell us is that we were also going to be landed with a bill from the South Point for $6,500 for the audio visual to support Dennis playing guitar on the stage. Now I managed to negotiate that away, and believe it or not, it sounded good enough. Dennis was actually playing through this regular speaker system on Wednesday, although he had requested, hanging speakers. Now I'm not quite sure if he knew where he was playing. He thought he was playing in Carnegie Hall or something. But it's been very difficult, Bill, and there are. We're also mindful of the fact that the club doesn't need we don't need any bad press or whatever. So, really we're thinking we draw a line and forget it, it's done, it's gone, we're moving on. We have no...
We also needed for the convention to basically complete, because for the past 2 months, things would spring up that we knew nothing about, that we were obligated to fulfill.
Yeah, $6,500 worth of advertising as well.
And we don't know what happens until the end of the convention. And so for us to get the new board, I guess, to go ahead and try and scope this out and see what the real impact was.
So we would have Bud would be getting calls every week about the credit card was provided for this $800 to go out on this date and it's declined. What's happened? And they said, what's it for? Oh, it's an advertising. Jerry committee said we didn't know that, etc. So that was another, say perhaps, well, it was 6,500 when we'd agreed a budget of 3,500, so I was supposed to go over this 3,000. Not that we would have necessarily have declined it, but we would have at least have liked to have known in advance what it was for. A lot of that publicity, which obviously Brad Smith has controlled, I don't know how many of you know or have met Brad during the course of the week. He's done it all his life, publicity, so a lot of it is geared to bringing as many people into the room as possible today. So I guess to some extent the proof will be in the pudding. If we have a full hall, then it was a worthwhile exercise, and we'll look at committing similar again. If the hall's completely empty, then I think Brad will be the first to acknowledge, okay, that didn't work, we'll take a different approach, or we'll look in other forms of media. Anyway, I think, try to answer the question, brief. It's time to move on, I think, and just...
But you know where I'm coming from, because you get rumors, accusations by various people on
It
board and stuff like this.
Yeah,
and you what you see is what you read, and
I
then
know.
no
And
follow-up.
I know, for example, there were things thrown to Jim, and he answered them because that was fair enough. But we thought on what was mostly financially related, it would just be better to say nothing. And unfortunately, yes, it'll probably makes a lot of people think that what Jerry said was true and correct and whatever. I'm afraid it wasn't. And there's a bit of both, a bit of both sides. But let's forget about it and on we go. And I hope everybody thinks that the convention's been good so far.
No, we don't want, divisiveness. We want everybody to come together at this point.
But yeah.
Is there any risk of the changes that you've put in place to prevent some of this stuff from happening in the future by having two people, having the board discuss anything and everything? Is there any risk of slowing down some decisions that need to be made urgently? I mean, was there anything that Jerry did that he had to do?
I don't know of any.
This is when we need to discuss something urgently. This is a text message. I mean, this has been a text message to me to Roy and them, and then to pass it on to Bun. I mean, we're engaged generally, unless somebody's in the shower or something. We're engaged within 10 minutes. So at least communication is much better than it used to be. I mean, there's no reason.
And that didn't happen with the previous president because he just didn't initiate the conversation?
No, what happened, to some degree, yes, but what also happened is that the micromanagement required basically that we not talk to each other.
Yeah.
That we only go through the leader.
Oh yeah, we couldn't talk directly to any
And so,
committee chair or anything like that.
Yeah.
Only the president was there.
and as soon as the resignation came up, we got together electronically, agreed to accept the resignation, because that went out right away. And we have been in massive communication contact ever since.
Well, we had been immediately
Messages,
beforehand.
David.
We had been immediately beforehand because some of these, we wish to call them irregularities, first came to light
Right, when things
the
started popping up.
week before Jerry's resignation, and several people independent of the board tried to help in our best interest by talking to Jerry. Well, I'll tell you, I mean, Doug Smith helped. Doug Smith tried to sort of smooth things out, as did Michael Siskin now, by talking to Jerry and saying you're going to be, needed to explain basically what's going on, and the next thing he resigned. So,
Yeah, see, you had asked originally, anything to manage the immediacy and I don't know of too many things that really popped up as immediacy. We talked, okay, and we looked at everything and decided a path forward, and I'll give you an example. It came to our attention by a post on the chip board that there was this likelihood that 4 out of the 5 trade sessions were not going to happen.
Yes. Yeah.
And
First,
so-
first we knew of it, by reading the chipboard.
So we asked Jerry, what's that
So-
about? And he said, well, I'm considering.
No, he said he'd done it.
No, he said
Oh,
he's
okay.
considering to do, this is what he's telling
Yes,
us.
yes.
I'm considering to do away with trade sessions. Immediately, David and I
And Rob.
responded to him, there's a lot of people that aren't gonna like that.
We don't think it's a good idea.
And so he thought about it and came back to us in an email message and said, no, I think this is the right thing to do. There's too much of South Point chips that show up there, cash things that dealers hate it, and we're gonna do away with the 4 of them.
I think if you want to be honest, Jim, the reply that we received was, I've thought about it, there will only be one trade session, I've made my decision, I will not, and from here on in, I will not abide by any decisions made by this board. I am the president, all my decisions are final.
So the 4 board members.
If you don't like it, ask me to resign.
Yeah, if you
That's
don't
what he
like
said.
it, ask me to resign,
And
but
then-
it wasn't real clear what he was asking us to tell him
Yeah,
to resign from.
result
Was it the
convention.
chairmanship or, the convention chairmanship or the president's position? But what we did is that we put a motion forward to reinstate all 5 trade sessions for the same days at the same time. That was seconded, and then we voted on it, and we voted yes, and he did not vote at all.
Oh, yeah, no, that's right.
Yeah.
We voted yes, he did not vote at all. He wrote back and said, I'm not abiding by any decisions now or in the future from this board. I'm the president, I make all the decisions.
And said that I can't check with you
No,
guys
no, no,
because
no.
it takes too long.
Which is, I mean, it's 3 minutes is too long, obviously.
And so that's when I believe that
Yes.
he recognized that the board wasn't really supporting him, when in reality, he was not supporting the board. It was his wrongdoing. Because there is a constitutional requirement that the president is to consult with the other board members. And he failed to do that multiple times.
Well, there are, I mean, we are a corporation after all, and there are, albeit a bit broad, some pretty basic rules that you have to follow. Yes, Christine, as you know, and unfortunately there's a couple of there which are clearly completely ignored.
So he's still a member, or is
He's
there any
a
code
member.
of ethics?
Why?
What's what I'm asking? I mean, is this just gone?
No, we want to draw a line under it. That's what we said. We want to forget it. It's that. I mean, Jerry did a lot of good things as well.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. We're not rubbishing everything that happened whatsoever. He did a lot of good things. We would just want to say, okay, it's forgotten. It's done.
I think that's smart.
Yeah.
Unless something else pops up that's even worse. I mean, we
I don't.
we really don't know.
Well, I think we probably do. We know where we are. It's gonna happen. No, we're enough. We don't need to know anymore. Yeah. Okay, I'd like to move that Bud present the treasurer's report,
And reopen the open discussion
Yeah,
afterwards, yes.
and then I'll continue afterwards with any other new business.
Well, I start by apologizing that I completely forgot about this meeting. My data and my schedule are safely locked up in the auction thing, so I don't even have anything with me. We have some money. We're paying the bills. We're we're in good shape.
Just about.
Hopefully, the convention produces good results, and I'll field your questions because I don't have the specifics with me.
There's
Yeah, I was
probably,
going to add in from what I said on the convention. We don't know how good or bad financially this convention will be for us. That's not just because of things, the events we've just discussed, things that have happened, because of the approach we've taken and the different publicity, etc., etc. We don't know. So we'll sit down in a month's time and review that and figure out what worked and what didn't work. We'll also poll all the existing dealers for any key issues or, happiness and unhappiness, etc. And then we'll sit down and look at it and say, okay, well, did it break even, or how much did it lose? Was it worth it? Do we want to go ahead and do all the things we did this year, in which we'll have to look for other ways of raising the revenue to cover it? Or did things not work and we don't want to, we'll cut a few things out, etc. We're going to have that discussion in maybe a month's time.
Now, one of the things that prohibits the immediacy of reporting is our accounting basis. We're on a cash basis as opposed to accrual basis. An accrual basis company records things based on the timing of the activity. Cash basis reports actions at the time the money moves in or out. So for this convention, we started recording prepayments last year. Last year's books are closed, so that information isn't even on this year's books. A lot of the stuff that we spend money on is on checks, and that doesn't get recorded in the books until the checks clear the bank. So there's a big array of timing differences that once the majority of this stuff is over and all the cash activity from the convention is put together, which will be in the next couple of weeks, I can then go back and pull the information from last year, pull the information from this year that's been recorded, and then pull the information that has not yet been recorded, and then combine all of that to see what the result is.
The key thing probably is the fact that the final invoice from the South Point doesn't typically arrive 2 to 3 weeks after the show. So that's why we said we'll discuss at the end of July, because we knew we might not have that otherwise. Although I'm hoping that I'll get a draft of it when I go in and see John on Monday anyway. So at least so that if there are any surprises, I can then discuss at the time and say, sorry John, what was that? I don't remember that being mentioned. And deal with it nice and politely, rather than having to do it by email later on.
Any questions on the finances or accounting? Yeah, I'm sorry I was late. Slept in.
Can I have a motion to accept the Treasurer's report?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favour?
Aye.
Thanks for the
Okay, so that concluded normal business. If we wish to move back to any new business from the floor, is there anything else that anyone wishes to ask or raise?
I know you don't have numbers for the convention, but what about attendance? Is any idea if we're doing what we did last year or 3 years ago?
Actually, there are one or two things that probably aren't public, not just because nobody put them forward, or maybe Jim Stephan did and they weren't known. Pre-registration, I wasn't here last year, so it's difficult for me to compare, obviously, and say, yeah, it was definitely busier than last year. Pre-registration was nearly 10% higher than last year. The hotel room rate occupancy was over 20%, near enough 20% higher than last year. The banquet numbers were the same, almost exactly the same, because that's something that has been declining year on year. And I hope that people had attended, if they thought it good, that they'll say so. Maybe we'll have a discussion on some of the social media forums and comment on it. And say what people, because a lot of people didn't come because they didn't think it was appropriate and that we should have $5. It's $5 fine.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people told myself and Jim Steffner, and even in fact Jerry at the beginning, out of those that are pre-registered, that they didn't want to come because they didn't think it was appropriate for the occasion, and they still wanted a regular speaker. And I will say, it's not easy to get good speakers. It's not like there's a list of them out there who are willing to actually come free of charge and talk about it. You have to find them.
Or accessible.
Or accessible, yeah. So we'll have a discussion on that and see. But yeah, there were a few numbers there, which is encouraging, because we've been, as with everything else, on a bit of a downward trend all the way through. So you've got encouraging in terms of numbers are the same or better. Roy's just given you the same thing for the membership earlier. So that's what I said, the proof will be in the pudding when we see the numbers and when we see what today's like out on the floor.
I think it would be a very good idea to post those numbers and that message on a chipboard.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of people that were hesitant to come because of what transpired.
Yes, exactly. There were a lot of people that didn't come. If they'd come as well, we could have been on the way up. But at least the point that we've at least plateaued, I think is important. Yes.
What's that way we can find out John Benedict's thoughts?
Yeah, John Benedict.
How's it compare against
He'll tell us.
1987's numbers?
He knew how many people were here. Yeah.
But no, I think there's a
Yeah.
fear of missing out by some of the people, and I think they realize that, hey, we had 10% more pre-registration and 20% more hotel occupancy.
Yeah.
They're going to say, wow, maybe I'm not, in the big crowd.
I think Jim did post on the pre-registration numbers at one point a couple of weeks ago, but there was no comparison. He just said this number of people are pre-registered. I seem to remember. Of course, that doesn't help by saying compared to whatever last year. Yes, we will. Yes, we'll do that. Normally, Brenda pops her head in to this meeting and has an idea and shouts at the rubble down there. We will get those numbers and publish them regardless.
I'd like to have it on the record that we really appreciate Jim Steffner for stepping in and helping us do what's been happening. And that Jim also is committed to being the chairperson for next year. Thank you, Jim.
And I had of that. I mean, this year obviously was a little bit exceptional. I sort of temporarily, I'd taken it on for a couple of weeks before Jim put his hand up to help out. Obviously, Jim had a lot of experience because he'd done it 7 times before or something.
Yeah, this is 8 now.
I think he did the 5 at the Riviera and the first 2 here, or something like that. And I still continued helping him with the sort of arranging the logistical things on the ground here. The arrangements with the hotel and getting people to run out and pick all the stuff up around Vegas to save delivery charges, etc., etc. And I said, look, I will still do that. I'll get somebody to help me do that over here so that you can do all the rest if you will continue. And Jim was politely badgering him as well, and he said yes, he could. He would have come here this year if he had more opportunity to arrange somebody to look after Sandy in heart trouble. But his daughter, is it? I think it's his daughter will go and stay there next year with her so that he can be here. So that's good for everyone as well. And he might bring in some things that we did 10, 11, 12, 13 years ago that we've forgotten about as well. So, fresh ideas. But he's been very helpful in that short term as well. Even if it's just reminding me, don't forget you've got to make sure this is taken care of at least a week before, etc., etc. Okay. Any other questions from the floor?
How long are we contracted for South Pennine?
We are contracted for a further 2 years. We've still got a very favourable deal here. In terms of the basic cost of the whole facility, the only change in the contract is that it's $1,000 more in those 2 years. Now actually, there is a list of benefits within the contract of things we get in return. You know, it lists out all the things we've got to pay for all as options as well. It also lists out the benefits we get included within that fee. There are a couple of things which I think may have been errors, and they may be offering us too much. I mean, maybe not. Maybe they're doing very, very good. So I'm gonna sort of be honest and run through those things on Monday with John as well, and just check so that there's no argument in a year's time with no, whoa, this $2,000 worth of tables wasn't free at all. You know, you're paying for, etc. But it's other than that, it's a very good deal. We did look at. We looked at others in the past, but even the last time we looked at the Orleans, didn't we? And basically, in terms of the rental cost of the space, they wanted the same for each day that we're paying for the whole week. And we've actually had these rooms since Monday. I picked the keys up on Monday morning at 8 o'clock. So, and we started some of our setup on Monday afternoon because we did it all ourselves and you know, setting up the tables that we rented from privately, and draping, etc. We spread it over Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning, so that we didn't have anybody keening over in the parking lot, and, you know, etc., to make it a lot easier. So no extra charge for us having access to the room. In fact, the second room for the entire week as well. That's an unbelievable deal. But I mean, so this year it's $6,000, but $6,000 for all this space for 6 days. We can't complain about that. If we don't raise enough money, then we look for a way to raise a little bit more money. You know, everybody chip in $50, but God, you couldn't rent a space like this. And all the running around, you know, every time something's not quite been set right, oh, we forgot to put tables in here, missed something. They've got a system whereby they're all in a text group, and you send one text saying, oh, I need 2 tables in the Cyprus room, and one of a whole number of people just answer, okay, be there in 5 minutes. We didn't have this a few years ago, I know, when I was with helping Steve Palumbo at the beginning of the week doing the same thing. We'd have to go and find a house phone and call somebody, wait for somebody to answer in the convention offices, which is up where we used to be, and then wait for them to call page somebody, and then you're standing here just waiting, thinking, is the guy coming in a minute, or is he coming in half an hour, or whatever. So there's a very good system that they've got operating here. And there's a couple of guys in particular that have fulfilled majority of requests where I've forgotten something, which I suspect that they literally dropped whatever they're doing and come around to do that. And I was actually going to, 2 guys I wanted to take care of, look after for doing that, even if it's out of my own pocket, so that we know that hopefully they'll be here next year, you know, and they'll do the same thing. But I had absolutely no problems with the people here whatsoever.
You know, this year,
Really good
this year there's more advertising throughout the whole hotel than I've ever seen before. Every hallway has something
and this
for us. The billboard is constant. I mean,
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
And this is not something that we asked extra for. We get four of the places, Duratrams they call them, that lit up. What's that?
I haven't seen any. The Jury
Saying it all the time.
Jury trans.
To rotate the ones that move. It's just
Yes.
because they're electronic,
Right.
electronic now.
Last year, they wouldn't let us be on the freeway marquee. It was only on the Las Vegas Boulevard marquee. Well, this year, it's on there, it's on the freeway,
Yeah.
and it's above the showroom. And Duratrans aren't there.
The Duratrams are there. You walk down one, you walk down the corridor to get from the
I
casino.
haven't seen.
There's another one at the end of the thing as you go into the casino.
Your good stand-up signs, Jim's right on that one, they're at the Duratrans.
No, I'm talking about the overhead lit up.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. One
I've
is,
seen it.
although we don't go up the escalator to the old convention centre, there is one there, one is there as well. But we've had more, because I mean, it's on signs elsewhere in the casino, I've noticed that we did not ask. Yes, because they have things, these are our events coming up. Some of them are little screens, electric, and they change.
We're also
They've been
on
on there,
TV.
they've done that free.
We're on the TV and the convention channel.
Yeah, I was just gonna say
Right.
that, there's some advertisement on the TV, they have a lower banner announcing the show on there, and then there's also a schedule that comes up there, you can see the schedule. If you wanna see it, I got it right here.
I mean, it actually said this morning, business meeting, 7:30 to 8:30.
Yeah, Bud didn't get that.
He was sleeping.
He's on a porn channel.
I don't know, you can't bring it down, I don't know if they're only done it here anyway, so I think you probably know. Okay, Jim just raised one thing, I'll just add one thing. What I suppose would have been the convention chairs report. Something we did this year for the first time, at a bit of extra cost. Now we know what we're up to. We can refine this for next year. It won't be as much cost. But we used an external moving company to move all the equipment from the storage unit, club and motor storage units, to the hall, and we'll back again tomorrow night. They also help to set up, they'll help load everything tonight, and they'll take it back to storage and meet up with Roy, etc. tomorrow morning. I wasn't here, but last year there was an incident of somebody almost keeling over at in the heat of the unit, loading up afterwards. So to say that's not the first time actually. It was Fred Bergman years ago as well. Had an issue. Everyone is getting older.
Yes.
We don't. It's not worth the risk. You know, things seem to be getting heavier as well. So that's one thing. Yes, there was an additional cost. On the other hand, the decision to go out and rent every single table that we didn't own and chair, rather than taking some that were offered by the South Point and renting the rest, has meant that we've saved as much money as spent on that. So, you know, yeah. And we'll review that, talk about that, and I'd actually suggest that we talk about that in terms of the new board, and we'll include Roy in the discussion, just review, you know, what was good and what wasn't good, and how we'll continue that efficiently and economically. I mean, it was a large part sort of the safety issue, but it went very smoothly. And Roy and Chris Carlson, who said, fantastic setup's a lot easier, best we've ever had. So simple, you know, we weren't dead by the time we actually started laying out the tables and whatever, because we hadn't been carrying them since 5 o'clock in the morning. So that was another, sorry, added.
You stopped volunteering and that was it.
And please, everybody who's a volunteer, come to the volunteer meeting, come to the volunteer banquet this evening, because apart from Dennis Blair, again, I'm pretty confident that you're going to see a spread of food that you've never seen at a volunteer banquet before, because I know a lot of people weren't very happy last year. If you haven't volunteered yet, find something you can volunteer on today, so you can come along freely, because there's probably enough food for everybody in that hall. They've laid on something great for us, a flavour at the end.
The green strip in your pre-registration said 7, it's at 6. Volunteer reception is at 6, not 7.
6 o'clock, right?
Yes. Need someone to announce that quite a few times today, I think. Thank you, Doug.
What was the reasoning for moving that up? Was that space availability? What was the reason for moving that time frame up?
Well, because now we're not carrying everything to the storage unit. The people are going to be hanging around for an hour or two extra. And there are people that get away later this evening that leave. So too many people were missing it. But it's going to run for a couple of hours, I think.
I'm part of the tear down crew. I know last year a lot of people didn't make it. That were part
Oh,
of the tear
well,
down.
you're going to benefit from the fact that the reverse happens with the fact that we've got all this extra help on at the tear down end as well. And you don't have to go anywhere because the moving company will take the trucks and we stay here. And then tomorrow morning they meet up with Roy, etc. and they unload at the other end.
That's wonderful.
So, yes, why were you thinking you're not going to have time? You have
That's
loads
the
of time.
concern.
You'll have loads of time.
You know, we got 2 hours and 15 minutes, so.
That's all right. We've got something like a dozen volunteers, plus the 4 moving company people with all their barrows and everything. So, yeah, I think we'll be good. I think it'll be good timing, and you'll still have time to get ready. Otherwise, you'd have just been hanging around for an hour thinking, oh, well, you know. So I think it'll work out well.
I want to applaud you on that decision. I think that's wonderful. That you went for the moving in and moving out. It's wonderful.
And that wasn't a complete additional cost, right? Because Chris
There
Carlson
was
told me
there was a cost.
Sunday, have to think
There was a
about
cost
it.
of the rental truck anyway, and vehicle rental of all forms seems to have just about doubled in a year, from what I gather. So the rental cost of the truck would have been probably 2/3 of the bill anyway.
and the truck sat vacant in the parking garage for.
Right, and I'll also point out, Chris Carlson took a bungee cord hook.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, those bad last year, yeah.
And he's lucky he didn't lose an eye.
Yeah,
And I would give
right,
Jerry
yeah,
the credit that he made the choice back then that we need to do something different, like renting or having a moving company move this. The arrangements that were being made for that over the past year were unknown to us when we came in. And so we were in a scramble to make contact with the mover. And I would venture to say that for next year, we'll have a greater amount of time to make the arrangement for the probably better financial deal than what we
Yeah,
had.
there's the way it's structured is that you've got to pay for so many people for a minimum number of hour block on each day you use them, etc. And we had to some extent fit it into what into our existing schedule, whereas this time we can look at what's the most economical way for them to do it, and then we'll fit the rest of when we do it. And knowing that nobody ever rents this hall on a Sunday or Monday or Tuesday or whatever, basically we pick the keys up on 8:15 Monday morning, we can arrange that to suit so we can get in here wherever we like. So we'll make that less wasteful. Okay, any more questions?
No question, but just I probably speak for a lot of the membership, thanking you guys for, all that extra work you've had to do the last few months, make sure this convention goes off unpaid and mostly thankless, so.
Unpaid?
I'll thank
Yeah,
you.
we're
I'm not getting paid?
Yeah. we're unpaid.
Yeah. So thanks, guys.
Okay.
And I'd add to that, under extenuating circumstances. So much appreciated with what you have to deal with.
Thank you.
I'm going to say thanks to Roy for the job if you guys haven't already.
Yeah, we do. Yes, we did.
So,
Yes,
okay.
you do it again if you like. Yeah, go. And I'd like to propose a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All in favour?
Aye.
Meeting is closed. Thank you very much. See you all next year.
Aye.